Jade Martinez stared at the coffee shop's chipped ceiling, calculating how many more double shifts she'd need to cover her mom's medical bills. The nursing school textbooks on her table seemed to mock her with their pristine condition. She couldn't afford to crack them open, knowing she might have to drop out next semester. "Excuse me, are you Jade?" A deep voice interrupted her spiral of worry. She looked up to see a man in an expensive charcoal suit, his dark hair perfectly styled despite the October wind outside. Everything about him screamed money, from his Italian leather shoes to the Rolex catching the afternoon light. "Depends who's asking," she replied cautiously. "I'm Nathan Cross. Your roommate gave me your number." He slid into the seat across from her without invitation. "I have a business proposition." Jade's hand instinctively moved to her purse, ready to leave. "I'm not that kind of girl." Nathan's laugh was genuinely surprised. "Nothing like that. I need a girlfriend, a fake one." "A fake girlfriend?" She studied his face, searching for signs he was joking. His expression remained serious. "My grandmother is dying," Nathan continued, his voice softening slightly. "She has one last wish, to see me settled down with someone who makes me happy. I've tried explaining that I'm focused on my career, but she won't accept it. The doctors say she has maybe 3 months?" Jade found herself leaning forward, despite her better judgment. "So you want to hire an actress?" "More than that. You'd need to attend family dinners, accompany me to social events, maybe spend holidays together. My grandmother is sharp. She'd spot a casual actress immediately." He pulled out his phone, showing her a banking app with more zeros than she'd ever seen. "I'm willing to pay $50,000 for 3 months of your time." The number hit her like a physical blow. 50,000 would cover her mother's treatments, her tuition, and leave enough for emergencies. But something felt wrong. "Why? Me specifically?" Nathan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You're studying nursing. You understand medical situations. You're also—" He paused, his eyes scanning her worn jacket and second-hand laptop. Motivated. The clinical way he assessed her situation stung, but Jade couldn't deny the truth. She was desperate, and he was, offering salvation wrapped in deception. "What exactly would this involve?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "Couple behavior in public. Holding hands, casual affection, shared stories about how we met. Nothing inappropriate," he added quickly. "Just convincing enough to make my grandmother believe I've found love." Jade looked at her textbooks again, then at the man across from her who held her future in his manicured hands. "I need to think about it." Nathan stood, leaving a business card on the table. "Call me by tomorrow. My grandmother doesn't have time to waste." 3 days later, Jade stood outside the most expensive restaurant in downtown, wearing a dress Nathan's assistant had delivered that morning. The navy blue fabric felt foreign against her skin, too soft and expensive for someone who shopped at thrift stores. Nathan appeared beside her as if from nowhere, and for a moment, she barely recognized him. Gone was the cold businessman from the coffee shop. His smile seemed genuine, his posture relaxed. "Ready?" he asked, offering his arm. "As ready as someone can be for professional lying," she muttered. His laugh surprised her, warm and unguarded. "Think of it as method acting." Inside the restaurant, Nathan's grandmother held court at a corner table. Victoria Cross was everything Jade had expected. Silver hair in an elegant chignon, pearls at her throat, and eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. "Grandmother, I'd like you to meet Jade Martinez," Nathan said, his hand settling naturally at the small of Jade's back. Victoria's gaze swept over Jade appraisingly. "So you're the girl who's finally tamed my workaholic grandson." "I wouldn't say tamed," Jade replied, surprised by her own boldness. "More like redirected his attention occasionally." Victoria's eyes crinkled with amusement. "How did you two meet?" This was the moment they'd rehearsed. Nathan had crafted a story about meeting at a charity event, but looking at Victoria's expectant face, Jade found herself abandoning the script. "He spilled coffee on me," she said, earning a sharp look. From Nathan. "I was studying at this little cafe near campus, and this man in an expensive suit comes rushing in, talking loudly on his phone about some business deal. He gestures wildly and knocks over my entire table." Nathan's eyes widened slightly, but he recovered quickly. "I felt terrible. Her textbooks were soaked, and she had this look of absolute devastation. I thought he was going to throw money at me and leave," Jade continued, finding her rhythm. "Instead, he sat down and spent 2 hours helping me dry my notes with napkins while I lectured him about corporate responsibility." Victoria clapped her hands together. "And you fell in love over soggy nursing notes?" "Something like that," Nathan said softly, his eyes meeting Jade's. For a second, she forgot they were acting. The dinner continued, with Victoria regaling them with stories of Nathan's childhood, each anecdote revealing glimpses of a boy who'd grown up lonely in a world of expectations. Jade found herself genuinely laughing at tales of young Nathan's attempts to build a treehouse for his imaginary friends. "He was always trying to create perfect little worlds," Victoria mused. "I worried he'd forgotten how to let real people into them." As they walked to Nathan's car afterward, Jade felt oddly deflated. The evening had felt more real than she'd expected, making the contract between them seem somehow cheaper. "You were good in there," Nathan said, breaking the silence. "The coffee story was better than our rehearsed version." "It felt more honest," she replied, then immediately regretted the words. Nathan stopped walking. "Nothing about this is honest, Jade. Don't forget that." His words stung, but they were a necessary reminder. This was a job, nothing more. By the end of October, Jade had attended 3 family dinners, 2 charity galas, and 1 disastrous Halloween party where Nathan's cousins had grilled her mercilessly about their relationship. She was getting disturbingly good at the role. "You need to look more in love," Nathan said as they walked through Central Park after Sunday brunch with Victoria. "My cousin Rebecca asked if we were having problems. Maybe because you flinch every time I touch you," Jade shot back, pulling her coat tighter against the November wind. Nathan stopped walking. "I don't flinch. You do. Yesterday at the gallery opening, I reached for your hand and you practically jumped. Your grandmother might not notice, but your family is getting suspicious." He was quiet for a long moment, watching a couple with a golden retriever play fetch near the pond. "I'm not used to casual affection." The admission was so quietly vulnerable that Jade felt her irritation dissolve. Over the weeks, she'd glimpsed moments of the real Nathan, the way he automatically ordered her favorite tea without asking. How he'd driven her to the hospital at 2 a.m. when her mother had a scare. The careful way he'd held her hand during Victoria's chemotherapy appointment. "We could practice," she heard herself say, "just to make it more natural." Nathan looked at her skeptically. "Practice?" "Holding hands, casual touches, the kind of things real couples do without thinking." She felt heat rise in her cheeks. Purely professional development. They found themselves on a quiet bench overlooking the water. Jade took Nathan's hand, noting how his fingers tensed initially before relaxing. His hands were softer than she'd expected, with a small scar across his knuckles. "What happened here?" she asked, tracing the mark. "Fell off my bike when I was 8. Victoria was teaching me to ride in her garden." His voice held a rare warmth. "She said the scar would remind me that some things worth learning require a few falls." "She loves you very much," Jade said softly. "She's the only family who ever did." The words slipped out before he could stop them, and she felt him tense again. Without thinking, Jade squeezed his hand. "That's not true anymore." They sat in silence, her words hanging between them. She'd meant it as part of their act, but something in Nathan's expression made her wonder if he'd heard something different. "Jade," he said carefully, "this arrangement—" "I know what this is," she interrupted, though her heart was beating too. fast. You don't need to remind me. But as they walked back toward his car, their hands naturally intertwined, Jade wondered who she was trying to convince. That night, she called her best friend Mia, desperate to talk to someone who knew the truth. "Girl, you're falling for him," Mia said without preamble after hearing about their afternoon. "I am not. It's just, he's not what I expected." "What did you expect? A cartoon villain?" "Real people are complicated, Jade, even rich ones." After hanging up, Jade stared at herself in her tiny bathroom mirror. Mia was wrong. She had to be. This was a job. The best-paying job she'd ever had. Falling in love with Nathan Cross would be the most expensive mistake of her life. But as she drifted off to sleep, she couldn't stop thinking about the vulnerability in his voice when he'd talked, about his scar or the way he'd looked at her when she'd said he wasn't alone anymore. Thanksgiving arrived with an unexpected warmth. Indian summer making the Cross family estate's gardens look like something from a magazine. Jade stood in the guest bedroom Nathan had given her, adjusting a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "You look beautiful." Nathan appeared in the doorway, and she caught his reflection in the antique mirror. He'd traded his usual armor of expensive suits for dark jeans and a cream cable-knit sweater. The casual clothes made him look younger, more approachable. "Your family's going to hate me," Jade said, smoothing her hair nervously. "They're going to love you. Grandmother already does." He stepped closer, and she caught the faint scent of his cologne, something woodsy and warm. "But if they don't, we'll leave early and get pizza." The offer was so unexpectedly sweet that she turned around, forgetting about maintaining distance. They were suddenly very close, and she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Nathan, "The turkey's ready," Victoria's voice called from downstairs, breaking whatever spell had been weaving around them. Dinner was a revelation. Nathan's extended family filled the massive dining room with laughter and arguments and the kind of chaotic affection Jade had only seen in movies. His uncle told embarrassing stories, his cousins debated politics passionately, and through it all, Nathan seemed to relax in increments. "You're good for him," Victoria whispered to Jade as they cleared dessert plates. "He hasn't looked this happy since before his parents died." The comment hit Jade like a physical blow. In all their conversations, Nathan had never mentioned his parents' death, though she'd noticed he deflected questions about them. Later, they walked through the estate's gardens under a canopy of stars. The November night was unseasonably warm, and Jade had shed her sweater, leaving her in a thin blouse that did nothing to ward off the evening chill. "Here." Nathan shrugged out of his sweater and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. "Your grandmother told me about your parents," she said quietly. Nathan's steps faltered. "What about them?" "That they died. I'm sorry, I didn't know." "Car accident when I was 15, he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Grandmother raised me after that." Jade stopped walking, forcing him to turn and face her. "Nathan, why didn't you tell me?" "Because it doesn't matter." But his voice cracked slightly on the words. "Of course it matters. It explains so much about..." "About what? Why I'm emotionally unavailable? Why I hire fake girlfriends instead of finding real love?" The bitter laugh that escaped him made her heart ache. "You think you understand me now?" "I think you've been alone for a long time," she said softly. "And I think you're scared of losing anyone else you care about." Something cracked in Nathan's carefully constructed facade. "You want to know the truth? I picked you because I thought you'd be safe. Poor enough to need the money, smart enough to play the role, but not someone who'd matter to me." His voice broke completely. "I thought I could control this." "Control what?" "This." He gestured helplessly between them. "The way I look forward to seeing you. How your laugh makes me forget about board meetings. The fact that I care more about Your opinion of my family than theirs of you." He ran his hands through his hair, destroying its perfect style. "I'm falling in love with you, and it's terrifying, because in 8 weeks you're going to walk away with your money and I'm going to be alone again." Jade felt tears she hadn't expected burning behind her eyes. "Nathan, I know what you're going to say," he interrupted. "That this was just a job, that you can't afford to complicate things with feelings." "You're wrong," she whispered. "I'm wrong. I was going to say that I love you too." Christmas morning dawned crisp and clear. Snow, dusting the windows of the small apartment Jade and Nathan now shared. 6 months had passed since their confession in Victoria's garden, and the world felt entirely different. "Grandmother's going to be insufferable about this," Nathan said, adjusting his tie in their bedroom mirror. He was nervous, more nervous than she'd ever seen him. "She's going to be thrilled," Jade corrected, smoothing the skirt of her cream-colored dress. "She's been dropping hints about great-grandchildren since Halloween." Nathan groaned, but his eyes were bright with happiness. They'd told Victoria the truth about how their relationship began shortly after Thanksgiving, expecting disappointment or anger. Instead, she'd laughed so hard she'd cried. "You think I didn't know?" Victoria had said, wiping her eyes. "Darling, I've been watching people fall in love for 80 years. The way you two looked at each other had nothing to do with any contract." Now they were heading to Christmas dinner as an engaged couple. Really engaged, with a ring Nathan had chosen. Himself and a proposal that had happened spontaneously in their kitchen over morning coffee. "Ready, Mrs. Cross-to-be?" Nathan asked, offering his arm. "Ready, Mr. Martinez Cross," she replied, using the hyphenated name they'd decided on together. The Cross family estate buzzed with holiday energy. 3 generations filled the parlor, wrapping paper scattered across Persian rugs while children played with new toys. Jade had worried about fitting in, but Nathan's family had embraced her completely once they realized she made him happy. "There's our favorite couple," Rebecca called out as they entered. "Come settle an argument. Nathan, tell my husband that you were absolutely miserable before Jade came along." "Utterly miserable," Nathan agreed solemnly, then grinned. "Jade saved me from a life of profitable but joyless board meetings. And Nathan saved me from a life of wondering if love was just something that happened to other people," Jade added, earning appreciative awes from the assembled family. Later, as they helped Victoria with dinner preparations, the older woman pulled Jade aside. "I have something for you," Victoria said, pressing a small velvet box into her hands. "These were my mother's earrings. I always planned to give them to Nathan's bride." Inside the box lay delicate pearl drops, simple but elegant. "Victoria, I can't." "You can and you will. You've given me the greatest gift possible. You've taught my grandson how to love and be loved. That's worth more than any jewelry." Jade felt tears threatening. "You know I was just pretending at first." "The best love often starts as something else entirely," Victoria said wisely. "Friendship, attraction, even a business arrangement. What matters is what it becomes." As evening fell, Jade and Nathan walked through the same gardens where they'd confessed their feelings months earlier. The November warmth had given way to December's bite, but wrapped in Nathan's arms, Jade felt perfectly warm. "Any regrets?" Nathan asked, his breath visible in the cold air. Jade considered the question seriously. Her life had changed completely. She'd finished nursing school debt-free, her mother was healthy, and she was marrying a man who'd turned out to be everything she'd never dared to dream of finding. "Just one," she said finally. Nathan tensed. "What?" "I wish I'd spilled coffee on you myself instead of waiting for you to find me in that cafe." His laugh rang out across the frozen garden, full of joy and promise. "Well, Mrs. Cross-to-be, we have the rest of our lives to spill coffee on each other." "Is that a threat or a promise?" "Both," he said, spinning her around until she was breathless with laughter. As they kissed under the winter stars, Jade marveled at how perfectly imperfect their beginning had been. She'd taken a job pretending to love Nathan Cross, never imagining she'd end up loving the man behind the name, complex, vulnerable, and real in ways that made every moment together feel like a gift. The fake relationship had ended months ago. The real one, Jade knew with absolute certainty, would last forever.